Well, hello everybody. My name is Chef Stanley Townsend, and I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Cook It Simple. Today we're going to cook it simple. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to use some common ingredients that may be found in the Edmonton Food Bank hamper or in your larder. You may have to augment some of these recipes. All our recipes will be posted online, so if you'd like to follow those around, go ahead. And so we're going to have fun. We're going to cook up a storm, and please join us in the kitchen. Okay, I guess we're ready to start cooking, and you know, we're really blessed here in Edmonton because we have such a diverse, multicultural society, community here. So on the show, I always like to feature some recipes that are representative of our different ethnic groups, and since it's wintertime, I'm going to cook a very traditional, old school style recipe called Mulligatawny Soup. A Mulligatawny Soup is kind of like a curried chicken soup. So we're going to start off with heating our pot, some oil in there. We're going to put some onions in. We're going to put some carrots in, a little green pepper, a little bit of celery, and if we take a look, we're going to saute that up. Looks pretty good. Just going to kick up that heat a little bit on it. And we're also going to add a little bit of ginger, and we're going to add a little bit of garlic. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our wooden spoon and we're going to saute that all up. Okay, as you can see, we have the vegetables sweating off quite nicely. We've got a nice combination, lots of color in there, lots of flavor in there. And now we're going to add the pièce de résistance, which really makes this an Indian-style soup. It's more a British colonial Indian-style soup, but we've added a little curry to that. I like to use the Madras curry powder that you can find in the ethnic section of major supermarkets. Always buy your spices in the bags. They seem to be much cheaper than paying an additional $4 for the bottle. You can smell that curry is really cooking off quite nicely. And now we're going to add another, curry always goes well with a little bit of fruit, so I've got some diced apples in there. You know, the green apples are probably the best apples to use. We're going to saute that off. Cooking along fairly good. This process is referred to as sweating off. Of course, we need a little of Canada's two favorite spices, salt and a little pepper. I always like to put my salt on my hand so that I can always hold back a little bit. Sauteing it off, it's cooking up, it's smelling good here in the kitchen. It smells like the streets of Bombay. On a Saturday afternoon, we're going to put a little more of that curry powder in there. And I'm just going to increase it slightly with a little more oil. It's your preference whether you use oil, use margarine. If you've got a fairly good budget, you can use butter, lots of flavor. It's sauteing off good, it smells good. What we're going to do is we're going to add a little flour to that. Now generally what happens, we're going to make a roux, which is going to be the thickening agent. And the roux is generally made out of half parts, or half a part, or 1 part of oil and 1 part of flour. And of course, you know, my rule of thumb is to just put enough flour on there so that it completely coats it like the first snowfall. We'll saute that off a little bit. Really smelling good now. I can smell the ginger, the garlic, the curry powder. I love curry powder, so just using my nose is my best guide. I'm going to add a little more curry powder. It can never be too flavorful. And of course, I've got some chicken stock here. Generally, when you're making the soup, quicken it up a bit. I've heated that chicken stock. You can use a commercial chicken stock that comes in a container, or you can make your own out of a bouillon cube. And what happens is we want that soup to return to a boil as quickly as possible. And you can see I've added half of the stock, and you can see it's coming up a beautiful color there. The turmeric in the curry gives it a really nice color. And then I can go and I can add the rest of the soup, stock mixture, and we're just going to let that simmer. and we'll be back in a few minutes to finish it off. Okay, so the soup has been simmering here for a while. You can see the simmering process is cooking out the apples, cooking out the vegetables. To test for doneness and for flavor, we're just going to take a quick little taste now. I want to be particularly sure that the carrots are cooked off. They look pretty good. Now we have to finish this soup. So we're going to finish this soup. We're going to put in a little bit of diced chicken. Now, if you're vegetarian and you don't want to put in the diced chicken, that's fine. If you're vegetarian and you don't consume animal products for whatever reason, then you can also try making this recipe with some vegetable stock. And then the last thing we're going to put in is some cooked rice. Now, for television, I've actually pre-cooked the rice, but if you're at home, you can actually put the rice in raw and just simmer and cook it off. Now, when we take a look at that soup, does that look like a nice, colorful, beautiful soup? Does to me. You can see the apples, very, very nutritious, very delicious appetizing soup to serve in a cold winter day. We're going to finish it off. We're just going to add a little bit of warm cream to it. Now, either you preheat your cream, or what we can do is we can temper the cream by adding a little bit of the hot soup to the cream to make sure we don't curdle it. Just like that. And then we can finish off our soup like that with a little bit of that cream. Of course, when you work in the kitchen with a chef, there's always a little bit of rattle and rolling of those pots. Now look at that beautiful soup. Nice, full of tasty apples, rice, chicken, green peppers, and we're going to put a little garnish onto this, so I'm just going to do a little bit of chopped cilantro as my final touch to the soup. This, of course, is entirely optional. Some people like cilantro, some people don't like cilantro, but what the heck, I got to do a little chopping on the show. And we should be able to finish that off. Now, carefully portioning that soup into a nice bowl. I got a nice scoop. I'm going to make sure, look at it, thick, creamy, delicious soup. Going to plunk her right in there. And I'm going to tell you, does that not look good, or does that not look good? That's a delicious soup. And all we're going to do is put a little of our cilantro on the top. And there you have a very easy to prepare. You've seen me make it. Mulligatawny soup, the flavors of India in a bowl. Enjoy. So our next recipe is going to be a recipe that is inspired by a Saturday Night Live skit called Cheeseburger, Cheeseburger, Cheeseburger. It was probably the call of the short order cook in the Billy Goat Tavern in downtown Chicago. Today we're going to make what's called a cheeseburger pie. I'm going to start off, I'm going to saute some onions. I put a little salt and pepper in there. Now I've got some ground beef, and I'm going to talk about this ground beef. It's already been cooked, and we're just going to put that in there and saute it around. Bingo, bingo, voila, voila. You can see that sauteing up quite nicely. Onions are cooked off, onions and ground beef. Now why I use this pre-cooked ground beef, you know, quite often when you buy ground beef, it's on sale. And it comes in a big waddy package like that. What I like to do is I like to take that big waddy package that may have 2 or 3 pounds of ground beef in it. And I simply cook all the ground beef off, and then I put it into little 1 pound bags, put it into the freezer. And then whenever I want to cook something like this cheeseburger pie or a little spaghetti sauce or some tacos, enchiladas, all I have to do is reach in there. The beef is already browned off. I can quickly defrost it in the microwave. Now, what would a cheeseburger be without some ketchup? So we're going to put a little ketchup in there. So basically you got 1 onion, 1 pound of ground beef. What would a cheeseburger be without some relish in there? So we got some relish. And what would a cheeseburger be without some good old-fashioned ballpark mustard? Such a simple recipe to make. The kids are going to love this. We're going to make 6 cheeseburgers in one. We don't have to buy any buns. We're going to mix that all up. Looks pretty good to me. It smells pretty good to me. Just make sure all those flavors, I can smell that mustard, I can smell that green. And we're going to put the cheeseburger into a pie plate. Now, if you don't have a Pyrex pie plate, what you can do is you can get an aluminum pie plate. So there we go. The cheeseburger is part of the dessert is completed. Now what we got to do is work on the bun. So what we're going to do to work on the bun, I'm going to take a couple of eggs, put them in there like that. We're going to take some milk, 2/3 of a cup of milk, and we're going to take 1 cup of biscuit mix. Now, I have posted on the recipe, in case you don't want to make your own, use biscuit mix. I'm just using it for convenience. If you don't want to use the biscuit mix, what you can do is you can follow the recipe that'll be posted on there. But if you're in a bit of a hurry, you can get one of those little packets of biscuit mix quite reasonably. So we're just going to mix that up. That will be our bun, and we're going to bake this all together. As you can see, it's all mixed up. We got lots of cheddar cheese that we bought on sale. We're going to put a layer of the cheddar cheese on there. The cheeseburger is coming together now. We're going to put the biscuit mix on top of it like so. Make sure that that's all mixed in there quite nicely. Now this is kind of a variation. That's kind of a fusion cooking, because really with the eggs and the milk, we're actually making a bit of a quiche. So we'll get that all in there together, all spread around quite nicely. And of course, what we want to use, a little more of that cheese, and we're just going to put that in the oven. We're going to bake that, at 350 for about a half an hour. Generally, how you're going to tell if it's cooked, put the knife in like a quiche, and there what we have. A cheeseburger pie. Cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. So enjoy that. Okay, so we're back. We pulled the cheeseburger pie out of the oven. It looks absolutely scrumptious. You'll find that the baking powder that's in the biscuit mix helps the pie rise a little bit and gives it a little bit of more texture. But I want to make this a healthy meal, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to dig out a piece of this pie first. Yep, looks great. I'm going to put that right onto the plate there, a fancy style plate. And what I'd like to do is make a little bit of homemade coleslaw. So first of all, we're going to take the grater. Now everybody has a tendency to use the grater like this, and they end up with no fingernails, this sort of stuff. So what I always say is, when you're using the grater, put the carrot at an angle like this and put the grater at an angle, and you'll find that that's much quicker to do. So a little bit of grated carrot, that should be about fine. We're going to take a little bit of either white onion, green onion, just to give it a little bite. And of course, to really make this coleslaw, I know a lot of folks like to buy the stuff that's in the bag, but I don't like that. I like to take a piece of the cabbage like this, I've cut this cabbage into wedges, kind of cutting towards the middle. And when I cut the cabbage, I'm going to cut that cabbage across so that I end up with very thin slices of cabbage, like this. And the whole rule of thumb is that I'm trying to cut those pieces so they're going to have to be kind of crunchy, and I don't like them, I like them about thumb size. So again, either slicing them, of course I'm fairly quick with my knife, and there we have some nice, crunchy, real old-fashioned coleslaw. Put that into the bowl like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix that up. I pre-made a little bit of coleslaw dressing. And I mean, you could use the commercial variety, but to make a quick coleslaw dressing, all you do is take a couple of tablespoons, 2 or 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise, put a little hint of mustard in there, put a little bit of sugar and a squirt of vinegar, lemon juice, and you've got homemade coleslaw. So we're going to put that in like that. I always have a tendency to put a little less dressing in there than what I need, and you look at that. You know, good food should taste good, it should look good, and it should have all sorts of interesting flavors to it. So doesn't that look good? Now that looks to me like a really delicious homemade coleslaw. And just wipe off our container, and I wonder if my lovely assistant Judy, who's working in the background, Judy came down from the food bank this morning, would grab me a piece of parsley, a piece of fresh parsley. So we're going to put some nice homemade coleslaw onto the plate like that. This is a big piece of cheeseburger pie. If you wanted to serve a little ketchup on the side, that would be fine, just for a little bit of decorative purpose. I've got some nice fresh piece of parsley here. I'm just going to put that in the middle there. Doesn't that look lovely? Doesn't that look beautiful? Cheeseburger pie. There are 6 pieces in the cheeseburger pie, and I would say that's enough for 2 or 3 people. 3 people, because you're going to eat at least 2 pieces of this pie. Beautiful. Great way to make a lunch. You've seen how simple it is to make. It's got all the food groups in it. It's got the ground beef, it's got the onions, it's got the cheese, it's got the milk, it's got the cabbage, the carrots. Hey, it doesn't get much better than that. Cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. Enjoy. All right, so we're back and we're going to make a classic Edmonton favorite. This recipe is called Deconstructed Cabbage Rolls. If you grew up around Edmonton, I'm sure that you have had lots of cabbage rolls in your time. They seem synonymous with the Edmonton cuisine. So we're going to take some diced onions, we're going to put it in there. Of course, we're going to put a little garlic in there, saute that off, and just to bring the flavors up, we're going to put a little salt and pepper. Now, I also refer to these as baba-less cabbage rolls. If you don't have a baba, this is a quick and easy way to make cabbage rolls, lazy cabbage rolls, deconstructed cabbage rolls, whatever your choice is. So we're going to let those onions saute off, bring up some flavor again. As I mentioned previously, buying that ground beef on sale. Ground beef is on sale this week for about $3 a pound, which is an excellent value. Buy that ground beef, brown it all off, put it into a baggie. Each baggie holds about 1 pot. Put it into your freezer, and whenever you want to make a quick dish like this, we'll just add some onions. We'll add that ground beef. Now, wait a minute. You say, I'm a vegetarian, I don't eat meat another way you can cook this recipe is you can also cook this recipe substituting lentils. Whether you cook your own lentils off or you use the canned lentils, that's either your choice. So we've got that, and of course for the deconstructed cabbage rolls, we also need some cabbage. Now ordinarily when I cook this recipe, you can brown the onions off, add the raw cabbage to it, put the rice, the tomatoes, all that sort of product in there, and then bake it in the oven. Today I'm going to do the stovetop version of it. So I'm just going to add that cabbage. I blanch the cabbage first, just put it in a little boiling water. I take a look, see all the cabbage, the ground beef, lots of cabbage. My favorite recipe, very nutritious. Cabbage is relatively inexpensive, full of nutrition, full of vitamins, good for you, detoxifies the system. If you don't believe me, just eat some cabbage. You'll know what I'm talking about. So we got all the cabbage in there, sauteing up quite nicely. Again, we'll put a little more salt and pepper in it to season it. A little more salt. Kind of hold back on the salt a little bit. Now, again, lots of people when they bake off their cabbage rolls, they use a little tomato product in there. Tomato soup works very well. So we'll put that in there, but also happen to buy a can of crushed tomatoes here, or chopped tomatoes here today. A little exercise. Again, mixing that all up, letting it simmer, bring out those flavors. You can put a little oregano in here, but you can see you've got a beautiful mixture already. It's almost like a cabbage roll stir fry. But we're going to put that on there. We're going to mix it all up, mix it all up. Lots of tomato product. We might add a little more chicken stock to it or just a little bit of water to thin down the soup. Remember that when you're using those canned tomatoes and the canned soup, they're quite high in salt, so you can really cut back on the amount of salt. So we're just going to mix that all up, bring that up to a simmer, and we're also going to add cooked rice. I've already cooked the rice for television here. And we're just going to mix that up, and of course what that rice is going to do, it's going to absorb all the flavors of the cabbage and the onions and the garlic and the ground beef and the flavorings. And of course if you want to spike it up, I like to spike it up a little bit. We can put a little of Louisiana red magic sauce, a little hot sauce in there, isn't going to hurt anything. I'm going to stir that all up, I'm going to bring it back up to a boil. Stove's running a little cool with a big pot. And we're just going to take our time. We're going to get it all mixed together like that. We'll take a look at it. You can see, holy kike, that's half a cabbage, 1 onion, a can of tomato soup, a can of crushed tomatoes, a pound of ground beef, and a cup of rice. Boy, that makes a lot of... Now you can put this into a casserole and let it finish baking, or you can continue cooking it on the stove top. What we're going to do, we're just going to cover that up with that big pan like that, let it simmer, and in a few minutes we'll be back to dish it up. So there you go, one last shot. Lazy cabbage rolls, or as I say, baba-less cabbage rolls. So we'll leave that there. Back. We've cooked our lazy cabbage rolls, our baba-less cabbage rolls. Look at that, it's been simmering away. Wow, I can smell the flavor. So we're just going to dish some up. I'll take a fairly healthy scoop like that. Of course, I'd like to serve these family style in a big bowl, whatever you've got. Will be fine. Of course, you notice I'm trying to serve this up without getting anything on the side. And we're just going to take that and put that over here to the side, somewhere it's not going to spill. We'll look at that. Beautiful. Smells good. Let's take a look at that. The chef will have to take a taste of that. Baba, this isn't as good as yours, but it's darn good. If it's good enough for my Guido, it should be good enough for yours. So, cabbage rolls. Cabbage rolls aren't really cabbage rolls till we serve a nice heaping spoon of the sour cream on top of it. And of course, we're going to embellish it with something a little green, just to give it a little more color. You know what really goes nice on this? It's not summer, but of course, what I would really like to garnish that with is a little fresh dill. Fresh dill is really a beautiful component. So there you go, deconstructed cabbage rolls, lazy cabbage rolls, Baba-less cabbage rolls. Try them. It's the flavor of Edmonton. It's the flavor of the soul. It's hearty. It's yummy, yummy, good for the tummy. The kids will love this. Cheap, nutritious, delicious, and easy to make. Cabbage, ground beef, rice, tomatoes, onions, garlic. Hey, it doesn't get much better than that. Baba-less cabbage rolls. Please remember that all the recipes are posted on the Edmonton Food Bank website. You can check them out at edmontonsfoodbank.com.